You are listening to Balloon Killers. I'm your host, Chrissy Riley, and each episode I'll be talking to someone from the world of cowboy mounted shooting, which is one of the most exciting and fastest growing equestrian sports. Hold on to your hats because it's going to get western. Hello everyone, how are you all doing? I don't know about you all, but I can't believe how fast the summer went. I've seen all of the back to school posts this week on social media. They're some of my favorite posts because they're so cute. And I'm not going to lie, fall is not my favorite season because the days start to get shorter and that really cuts down the amount of riding time that I have after work. But this year is a little bit different because I've been looking forward to a trip that I'm taking to ride camels in the Gobi Desert, horses and reindeer with the reindeer people in Mongolia. And I'm actually going with someone who I met through shooting. Shout out to Laurie Wayne for inviting me on this trip of a lifetime that's given me something really exciting to look forward to through what's been really a pretty rough year. But enough about me. My guest for this episode is a ladies level 5 in central Missouri, and she and her husband Travis just started the Missouri CMSA club with their 2 children, Katie and Zane. They've been involved in the sport of mounted shooting for decades, and the family really enjoys training all of their own shooting horses from weanlings up. Laura Smith has a background as a professional trainer and colt starter, but she's now working in the corporate world full-time, so she uses her free time to focus on the family horses. You can usually find her on a colt at many shoots in the mid-central region and Missouri area. Laura was the 2018 Central US Championships Reserve Overall Champion Cowgirl, the 2020 Mid-Central Region Overall Champion Cowgirl, the 2020 Missouri State Champion Overall Cowgirl, and the 2021 North Central Region Reserve Overall Cowgirl. But in her own words, she's proudest of the titles as wife and mom, and the fact that their entire family enjoys this fantastic sport together. Laura was so kind and patient through multiple technical snafus, and I feel like I left the interview with a new shooting friend. I really hope you enjoy our conversation, and apologies for the poor sound quality on my end. Phone microphones definitely aren't the best. Tell us about how you got into mounted shooting.
So my husband found the sport back in 2002 from a really great guy named John Dotson. And we were just at a horse show, and Travis, my husband, and John struck up a conversation, and John was looking to get the sport up and going in Missouri. And so he invited us to try it on his good horse Quincy. And we did. We took him up on it. We each ran a pattern on his horse, and I don't think either one of us hit many balloons, but we were hooked for sure. And so my husband decided he for sure wanted to try it and was interested. So we went back to our pasture full of 12 head of what we thought were pretty nice horses at the time. They had good pedigrees, pretty good minded, and we thought they were pretty well trained too. And I think we kind of thought the same of ourselves as horsemen too, if I'm honest. We were like, oh yeah, we've got this. We know what we're doing. Like we're nailing it. But mounted shooting changed that entire dynamic for us. I got to be honest. And I think 2 out of that original pasture of 12 head would shoot. And part of that, was just due to our lack of knowledge and training skill. But part of that was also due to the fact that, some of them just weren't going to make the cut. But I do think we've had a little bit of a different journey into the sport, because we really didn't have any resources here in central Missouri when we were starting out. There just wasn't anyone to ask, about how to start a shooting horse or what to do. It was still mostly Arizona based at that point. And so we just kind of had to grit it out and figure out how to get our horses started and get them going. And, I remember Travis entered his first shoot, and we just loaded up my huge powerhouse of a gelding, and he was a 16 hand X racehorse, and we entered him up. And I don't really know what we were thinking. We didn't have practice beforehand. It's so funny to look back on now, but I mean, I've done a lot with him. He was pretty broke, but it's still just hilarious memory at this point. But so most of our time has really been spent competing within the state and regional level over the years. And, we have a couple of good ones coming up that are getting sharp and they really start firing. Then we'll hit some national events. But since we're at the 5 and 6 level, I'm a ladies 5 and Travis is a men's 6. Now, most of our time is really spent at home and kind of on the local level training colts until we're competitive enough to want to really haul again.
So how long have you been in the sport of mounted shooting?
So we joined back in 2002, and we took a couple of years off there to build our house and kind of get some horses trained at it and kind of really get in the flow. I would say we've probably been really competing since 2006 or 2007.
Wow, you're real veterans of the sport at this point.
Yeah, we are for sure hooked and 110% invested.
You must love the sport. So what is it that you love about the sport?
Oh, we really do. Hands down, I would have to say it's the horses. Mounted shooting horses will always have my heart. I will never watch a shoot and not be in awe of the horses. And my husband, Travis, he has this whole spiel he can and will launch into randomly sometimes. And we tease him about it because he's a huge history buff and we refer to it as the war horse speech. But he did give it one time in front of a large crowd of people at the Midwest Horse Fair while he was sitting on his horse and right before demonstrating the sport and running a rifle pattern for the crowd. And that ended up being one of my favorite memories. So I can't do it justice. It's kind of hard to sum up. But he basically talks about the fact that horses were bred and trained for thousands of years to accompany men on the field of battle. And so even before being bred as workhorses, they were valued and developed and trained as our partner in battle. But then once the mechanical age hit and cavalry horses were really no longer needed, these horses were instead being phased out. And we just didn't need horses that had the bravery and the training, to stick with us in the midst of clanging armor and guns going off and these courageous horses that were willing to charge into the thick of battle without hesitation. And really, if you think about it, we didn't need all the training knowledge either on how to develop those horses, how to gun break, how to get those horses to the point where they would charge into battle and still be right with you. And so right about the time that those old cavalry methods were being well and truly lost, after centuries of building this knowledge and then selectively breeding for these traits, we really feel like the sport of mounted shooting picked them right back up. And it sort of revived this idea of the war horse that was fading away. So for us, it gave us a reason to place a lot of value again on a smart and courageous and athletic horse instead of just reducing them to a show animal that, maybe needs pampered or coddled. And so for us, I guess that really embodies this idea of the horse as our true partner and our battle buddy that we rely on. So this sport has essentially provided our family a bigger purpose to try to achieve with our horses. I'd say every run, it really isn't just running as fast as we can, scrambling around the arena, shooting stuff, trying to win buckles. It's really for us all about that feeling that great run produces and that total trust that we put into our horses and then feeling that reciprocated. And it's kind of, just trying to achieve that seamless communication and higher level of horsemanship that it's kind of forced us to strive for. So, but I mean, mounted shooting is just that thing that it's provided us with the things that we were always looking for, which is the ability to spend our lives with our kids and incredible people and exceptional horses. And we just feel so lucky to have found the sport.
Yeah, I agree. And I've often felt the same thing when I watch mounted shooting or even when I watch rodeo, to watch the horses do their thing. The fact that these huge animals, put their faith and their trust in us to guide them and do what we want to do is really quite incredible. But you just started this club. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, we sure did. So we started Missouri CMSA and oh gosh, it's been a journey. So we ran, just to give background, we ran a local club that we helped start for many years here in Central Missouri. And so, back when we started, I talked about John Dotson and then George Hartman, and we had a few little people here in Central Missouri that we did start a local club with. I think from about 2004 through 2018 or 19, we ran that local club, and we just had a ball putting on events with a great group of people every summer. But back then, Missouri shooting was really strong. And so we had several other clubs here, and we could just shoot somewhere in the state every weekend all summer long. So, we decided we'd given back to the sport enough, and we were ready to just step back and kind of focus solely on our good colts we had coming up and our little program. So we did. We stepped away from the local club. And then a couple of the other Missouri clubs that had been having events ended up shutting down, losing members, and then COVID hit. And all of a sudden we're looking around and there hasn't been a local shoot in Missouri in like 3 or 4 years. So we've got more young horses coming up. We really need to haul them. And we started, looking out a year or two and going, oh my gosh, for these, our 2, 3, 4-year-olds, we're looking at entering these babies their first time. Like our options here are a big added money premier event that our sister club, the Missouri Big Irons, were putting on, or hauling 6 hours one way out of state to a fun shoot. So the bigger issue to us, though, was the fact that we're just seeing a decline in shooters in Missouri overall. I think we have maybe 40 or 50 total that are actively competing. So, we'd done the club thing before, and we kind of determined that we felt like it was possibly the lack of local shoots that was kind of the problem. It's really hard to get up and going in this sport if you don't have that low cost, low pressure kind of fun place to go. But so we'd been shooting with Iowa CMSA for the past 4 or 5 years and just having a blast at their events. And if you've never been to one of those, I would put it on your bucket list, because they just have that family feel, and they are an incredible level of competition, and they're low cost, and they just nail their events. And so we really wanted to see that back in Missouri again, like the good old days. And we had a lot of people that were still asking us about our sport and were interested in starting. So, I found out that Dee had her new role in CMSA, and I was excited about that. So I called her just to ask a few questions, and, the rest is history. But I quizzed her about the format that we were thinking of offering to kind of help new people get off the ground. And she just made it all so easy and provided that amazing platform of support. And so it was like, okay, yeah, let's do this.
That's awesome. And it's great that you are thinking about how to get more shooters into the sport. What have been the successes and challenges of starting a new club so far?
Ooh, that's a great question. I'll talk about the challenges first. I think the biggest one was really that, it's a little tough to want to put yourself out there. That fear of crashing and burning and, maybe screwing this up or just generally not having success. So it was really tough to gauge the support and have any idea if we'd just be wasting our time and our money trying to help mounted shooting in Central Missouri. But I got to say, at the end of the day, we just decided that if that was the main thing stopping us, then, we needed to forge right on ahead, because if you don't put yourself out there, you're just never going to know. And it's been really fun. We started Missouri CMSA in mid-December last year. And by the end of, I think, February, we had 4 separate requests for new shooter clinics, and we had already filled them. And so that early success was a huge boost for us, and it made us feel like people were looking for this in Central Missouri again, and that there was kind of a void there not being filled. So we ended up introducing a lot of people to our sport this spring, which was amazing, and made us feel like, hey, we did make the right decision. Another challenge, of course, was holding that first shoot. So even having done this before for many years, the number of details to wade through was pretty daunting. I remember sitting there taking entries and just having a surge of panic when that first person walked up to hand me their entry money. I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm going to screw this up. I didn't want to put them in the wrong thing or whatever. But my advice for anybody that is interested in starting a club is just to know your support system and be aware that you do have one. Dee was so great and reassuring. She was only a phone call away, and she took the time to train me on the new software, make sure I was comfortable with it. And honestly, Chrissy, the one thing I'm sure you and I both know that you can always count on is that the shooters are just going to take care of you. Like, they're just going to be understanding. So our inaugural event at the end of June, we ended up with 32 shooters, which was huge for our little event in Missouri. That's the same amount as the Mid Central Regionals here got. And it's just our little family putting this shoot on. So we were a little concerned about, workers and jobs, but I don't even think we ever had to set a pattern or worry about so many things because all the shooters just jumped in and saw a need and filled it. And it was pretty incredible.
It's definitely one thing that I love about our community is just the people and the help. As secretary for a local club in Colorado, there's so many people stepping up to help.
Isn't that the best?
I know in Colorado we've got another club that's looking to start. What's one important thing that you think you've learned in the process of starting a club?
That's exciting that you might have another Colorado club. That is wonderful. And that's a good question too. I think one important thing that I have learned would be, it would just be the reminder of how many amazing people are in this sport and the fact that you really do get back out what you put into it. We really just want people to have fun and horses to do well and like their job and this sport to continue into infinity. And none of that can really happen without the local clubs and without people sharing that hard-fought, hard-won knowledge freely with others. So while it is daunting, like I said, to consider starting a new club, it's also pretty amazing for me personally to look back and see what it's done in our personal lives. I've gotten good at everything from accounting to web building to flyer creation and event promotion, all due to my volunteer work at the club level. And so many times, I got to admit, I kind of thought oh my gosh, this takes up a lot of time. And, but at the end of the day, my professional life has benefited quite a bit. And oddly enough, now event planning is one of my main jobs and I truly love it. And so Travis and I and the kids, we don't claim to be the experts in the game or know everything, of course, but we have given a lot to the sport and we really made a commitment to help shooters and their horses the way that we've been helped as best that we can, at the level of knowledge that we have, which we're constantly still learning, of course. But we were taught to freely give information and help without any expectation of reciprocation. And so we did, but it's just come back tenfold. And to me, that's just so amazing to look back on.
For sure. You've put a lot of time and effort into starting this club. So I want to give you a chance to do a little shout out. What events do you have coming up that we should all be thinking about attending?
Oh, thank you so much. So we've had kind of some issues with scheduling, but we are looking for a potential date right now to have another fun shoot. We had one at the end of June, and so we do some fun open practices at our place too. And we have a really good pen at our farm with really good dirt and lots of shade, and we just have a blast spending a few hours practicing and then throwing on a potluck. And then, so we are planning on scheduling some fun shoots here at our place too, and we're right smack in the middle of Missouri. So it's kind of a good, people are pulling through, good place to stop off and have some fun at a low cost fun shoot. But then we also do, like I mentioned, clinics based on request. So we may have one or two of those for new shooters this fall as well, depending on kind of what people are asking and looking for. But yeah, we're excited to get some more shoots put on the calendar and to offer them for people. So I appreciate it. And you can always see our lineup at MissouriCMSA.com, MoCMSA.com, or Missouri CMSA on Facebook.
Great. What is your favorite pattern and why?
Oh, that's it's probably number one, the arrow. It's just so much fun to run different ways, and you can run it that one way where you can shoot the one on the barrel last before shooting the rundown and try that insanely fast gun change. So I really like the ones that force me to push myself and my horse's communication and kind of see where we're lacking. So I think that one's always been my favorite.
That's funny, actually, because I've been doing this visualization or rehearsal, as Lanny Basham calls it. But actually, the arrow was the one that I mentally rehearsed last night. So that's very coincidental. What's the win that you are most proud of and why?
Oh, that one is a hard one for me. I really want to say any number of wins on training horses, but if I'm honest, probably winning the Reserve Cowgirl at Centrals back in 2018 on my good horse. It was a smaller national event, so I don't have a lot of ego wrapped up in it. but I missed the very first balloon on the first stage.
Oh
And so I
no.
just had the most fun though, like the whole rest of the week, pushing myself and my horse to the limit with the rest of the patterns with like no fears of, losing. And we somehow outran our miss and we won a big class of 17 lady sports and the amateur AQHA and the reserve cowgirl too. It wasn't super funny at the time, but it's hilarious to me now that I did the math wrong. So I thought there was no way I could be in the winning. And I really had a really long work week starting that evening. So we had to get home and we did not stay for awards. I feel really bad about that. And obviously, no photo in the rundown since I accidentally snubbed the award ceremony and my fellow shooters. But
Oh
I'm used to
no.
taking and not picking up checks. So, but that was a really fun event because, my horse and I were able to just kind of jive and not worry about anything. And then it resulted in, a win for me. So.
Doesn't that really speak to the idea of how your sort of mental, what you're thinking about and worrying about can really impact your performance? Because it's kind of liberating when you miss a balloon on the first pattern because you're like, well, that's it. I'm kind of done now. So then you don't worry about it so much anymore.
Exactly, exactly. It was a nice lesson for the mental game for sure that and I share that with people all the time. I'm just like just don't give up. Just keep hammering after it and just go out there and have fun and get it done.
What's a little known fact about you?
Oh, that's funny. I always answer this one in the professional world as I compete in a sport called mounted shooting. But maybe that I was dead set as a kid growing up that I was going to be a jockey. So when I started working for a racehorse farm just down the road at the age of 13, like everything was lining up for me and it was perfect. And then from the age of 14 to 16, I grew like an entire foot and I'm now 5'9". So say that dream was dashed.
As a fellow tall girl, I understand how that is. What's the most useful thing in your trailer when you're on the road? You've been doing this for 20 years or more, so you must have a lot of experience taking your horses down the road. What's the most useful thing that you have that we should all have?
I love this question. I love listening to everyone else's answers. So our biggest thing that we never leave the driveway without is some way to get additional fluids in our horses. And for us, that's usually like alfalfa cubes and electrolytes. I have pro rodeo friends that haul with IV fluids like always on hand and ready to administer. But for those of us that aren't as trained at that and when and how to run IVs, it's basically become any way we can get extra water in our horses when traveling. It just helps them so much. Those extra fluids are the first line of defense against colic and tying up, and they help with, ulcer issues and so many things. And it just is like if our horses have plenty of hydration, it really helps them recover faster after competing and to compete at a higher level. So we never haul without feeding soaked alfalfa cubes or pellets once a day or so with kind of some electrolytes to keep them drinking. That's just kind of become our fail-safe and has really worked well for us. And so it seems like every time we stray from that protocol, we pay for it. And actually, speaking of paying for it, I am running on 2 hours of sleep today. We had a horse shipped out to Vegas for Westerns, and she colicked last night.
Oh
So
no.
yeah, it's been a little rough. But I mean, we all know the drill. Like you can do everything to prevent it, and these dang horses will still just want to get sick on you. So I mean, it was for sure no one's fault. But of course, we strayed from our protocol, and she went down, and we had to make an emergency vet call in the middle of the night. And so we are religious about that one thing, and we have been for years. Over, like you mentioned, we've been doing this a while, and we've had 3 episodes of pretty hard colics on the road, always out of state, always somewhere where, we didn't know the local vets. And so I do get made fun of for, like I pack my little horse hydrator too, which is a filter that you can put on any spigot, so, we get teased about pampering our horses, but it's really, if you've ever had a horse colic on the road, you do anything to prevent that from happening again. So we've gotten pretty weird about anything we can do to get the extra fluids in them.
Well, I so appreciate you taking the time to talk to me, especially given how little sleep you have had. It has been such a pleasure.
Oh, of course. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for this podcast. It's really great to hear other shooters, and I really enjoy it. So I appreciate your time.
Many thanks again to Laura for her patience and kindness with the tech issues. Make sure you add Missouri CMSA to your list when you're looking for shoots out of town, because from the warmth and kindness that I received through the process of interviewing Laura, I know that their shoots must be really welcoming. As I head out to Mongolia for a couple of weeks, I won't be checking email, so please be patient with me. But if there are balloon killers you would like to hear interviewed, please email me on balloonkillers@gmail.com. That's balloonkillers, all one word, @gmail.com.